What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. This is Dr. Hamas Tech, and today we are going to do a full comparison video over here between two very powerful phones. So in the first corner here we have the OnePlus E11 5G, and in the other corner we have the Galaxy S23 Ultra. So what we're going to do is, of course, check out the key features and specs on both of these two phones, of course, to help you to make your purchase decision by the end of this video. So yes, without further ado, let's just get right into it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with the prices here because I know a lot of you guys will be saying that I should be comparing the OnePlus 11 to the likes of the S23 or the 23 Plus. But we all know when it comes to OnePlus, they like to be known as the flagship killer. So yes, with the OnePlus 11 here, I am going to put it up against the flagship beast, the S23 Ultra. So in terms of the price, the OnePlus 11 does go for about 3,299 ringgit here in Malaysia for the base model, and if you get the higher spec model, you can get it for 3,499. And of course, if you switch it on to the Galaxy S23 Ultra, this one here does start off at 5699 ringgit Malaysia. Of course, a massive difference of about more than 2,000 ringgit, which is about, I think, 400 USD, about there. And if you want to get the highest spec model, you can get it for about 71.99 ringgit Malaysia, which of course is insane. So now we're going to talk about the build and design on both of these two phones. So if we're going to talk about the material itself, definitely the S23 Ultra would win it because it does use the latest Victus 2 on the back and on the front, and it also does have an aluminium frame on the sides. Here with the OnePlus 11, it does use a Corning Gorilla Glass Victus on the front and a Glass 5 on the back. So it's not as durable, but it is still made up of, it's still made up of a very good material, so not to worry about it. When it comes to the design, as we can see with the S23 Ultra, as we know, it is following last year's S22 Ultra, so very similar, but first it does have a slightly larger camera array. Whereas on the OnePlus 11 here, it follows, I like the design here. It is an upgrade compared to last year's 10T, which they have put it to the side here, following what the S21 Ultra did previously. So I do like the embedded sides here, and the camera bump as well does help me to actually just hold and rest my finger here, so give me a little bit more support. It is of course a glossy back over here, and it is quite slippery if you do not want to use it with a case, more slippery compared to the S23 Ultra. And if you look on the sides here, this one does have a nice curve on the sides, whereas on the S23 Ultra, it's a little bit more flat, easier to hold. And one thing to note is that the power button and the volume rocker is located on one side on the S23 Ultra, nothing on the other. And on the bottom, yes, we have the S Pen, which you can't find on many other phones. We have the stereo speaker setup, we have the USB-C for charging, and also your SIM card tray slot. Going on to the OnePlus 11 here, we have the power button, and we also have the alert slider, which has returned to the OnePlus 11, and we have the volume rockers on the other end. And of course, on the bottom here, we have the stereo speaker setup, we have the USB-C for your Super VOOC charging, and also your SIM card tray slot. When it comes to the buttons, I do prefer it on this one here because it's easier to press, because like sometimes you want to press the volume, right? Your hand still needs to rest here. So sometimes you want to press it both so you can take some screenshots or whatever, which you don't want to do it. So I do prefer that the buttons would be on one side, it just makes it more simple, but that is just my opinion. So let me know what you guys think about those button layouts. Okay, so now let's talk about the displays on both of these two phones. So in the S23 Ultra, it does come with a 6.8-inch display, bigger compared to the 6.7-inch you can find on the OnePlus 11. When it comes to the curved display, both of them are very, very minimal in terms of that. And of course, you want to talk about the specs here. Both of them do have your 120Hz LTPO3 AMOLED display, and of course, in terms of brightness, the S23 Ultra can go up to all the way to 1750 nits, whereas this one here, 1300 nits. In terms of like broad day sunlight, when you're using it outdoors, definitely the S23 Ultra does pull ahead to give you that extra brightness when you're watching your content or reading through your messages. That one definitely helps. But when it comes to the sharpness, everything else, both of them are, to be honest, really, really nice. But definitely going to give it a little bit more edge to the S23 Ultra. It definitely feels a little bit crispier, a bit more accurate, and the colors do tend to pop out more compared to the OnePlus 11. And when it comes to speakers here, let me do a speaker test for you guys out there. Okay, and when you talk about the haptics on both of these two phones, really good, so not much to separate both of these two phones. And moving next here, we're going to talk about the face and fingerprint unlock. So as we can see here, works really fast and very reliable. So if you show it to my face, boom, you're right in. One more time, boom, you're right in. It does use an optical scanner compared to this, which uses an ultrasonic scanner. And you can see it still works pretty fine, I would say. And if you go to the face unlock as well, okay, doesn't match. Okay, one more time. Okay, doesn't really match. So it is a little bit more sensitive compared to the OnePlus 11. It may be a good thing or bad thing, but of course, let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you want to talk about the IP68 rating, this one here have it with the S23 Ultra, whereas on the OnePlus 11, it doesn't have an official IP68 rating. Okay, so now let's talk about the internal specs on both of these two phones, and this is where it gets pretty interesting. So both of these two phones are using the same Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor, and in terms of RAM, LPDDR5X RAM, and depending on where you're from, sometimes you may get up to 8 gigs RAM all the way to 16 gigs on the OnePlus 11, whereas on the S23 Ultra, it does sometimes start at 8 gigs up to 12 gigs of RAM. And if you talk about the storage here, both of them are using the latest UFS 4 storage, which can go up all the way to 1 terabyte on the S23 Ultra and about 256 or 512 on the OnePlus 11, again, depending on where you're from. In terms of day-to-day usage, I've done a separate comparison here to see the speed and all that, but to be honest, day-to-day, they are working really fast and very snappy. This is 2023, and of course, these are the flagship processors and specs, so definitely works really nice. Of course, one thing I'll talk about here is the software side of things. So of course, with the OnePlus 11, it does come with the Oxygen OS 13, and over here, it does come with One UI 5.1. Both of them are feature packed. Of course, this one here does have the Color OS vibes to it, and it does lose a little bit of that touch from the previous OnePlus phones. But to be honest, I really do like it. Like ever since the OnePlus 10T, they have kind of refined and repolished their software here, which I really do like. They have the Edge panel here, which I always do like to use on my Samsung phone. But of course, with Samsung phone, they have like their own ecosystem. You have your Samsung DeX, you have your Samsung Pay. Of course, you do have Google Pay, but it's not really widely available in most countries. I would lean slightly towards the Samsung device because I am just really into the whole ecosystem, and that's where it pulls it off. Here, it doesn't really have that whole ecosystem yet. They do have their buds and all that, but this one's a little bit more complete. So I like to go for this, but if you like the more simple approach, this one here definitely fits the bill. And next thing I want to talk about here, which is of course very important, is of course the battery management. So like I mentioned, Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 has definitely helped a lot when it comes to battery management. I do get more than a day of use when it comes to the battery here. Both of them are using 5000 milliamps of battery, so very huge. And I gotta say, I'm very impressed with the batteries on both of these two phones. Of course, with the OnePlus 11, you do have the charger here, the SuperVOOC 100-watt brick charger here, which is able to charge up from 1% all the way to 100% in about just 30 minutes. Whereas on the S23 Ultra, you do not even have a charger brick right out of the box, so you have to buy it out, and it can only support up to 45 watts max, which still does take about 1 whole hour to charge it up. But it does have your wireless charging, your reverse wireless charging, and I do like to use the MagSafe stuff with this as well. It just makes it really fun to play around with this phone. And of course, last but not least, let us just talk about the cameras that comes with both of these two phones. So in terms of the selfie shooter, as you can see with the 23 Ultra, it's located at the center, whereas on the 11, it's located on the side. To be honest, I just prefer the symmetrical design on the S23. But in terms of the numbers here we do have a 12 megapixel f2.2 sensor, which can record up to 4K at 60 FPS, whereas on the OnePlus 11, it does have a 16 megapixel f2.5 sensor, but it can only record up to 1080p at 30 FPS, or is it 60 FPS? So yeah, that is all you're gonna get with the OnePlus 11. And if we go on to the rear cameras over here, with the OnePlus 11, it does come with a triple camera setup, starting with a massive 50 megapixel f1.8 sensor with dual autofocus and OIS. And you do have a telephoto lens over here with a 32 megapixel f2.0 sensor. It does have your dual autofocus and can go up to 2 times the optical zoom. And lastly, we have a 48 megapixel f2.2 sensor with a 115 degrees field of view, and it does have your autofocus. And this one here can record up to 8K at 24 FPS. Alright, and now let's go on to the S23 Ultra, and it does have the quad camera setup, starting with the massive 200 megapixel sensor, which does have your dual autofocus, laser autofocus, and OIS. And we do have the telephoto lenses over here, both at 10 megapixels. One can go up to 3 times, and the other at 10 times of optical zoom. And lastly, we have the 12 megapixel ultra wide sensor, which does go up to the 120 degrees field of view, and it does have the super steady video feature. And this one here can record up to 8K at 30 FPS. Alright, and now let's check out some photos on both of these two phones and see which one does look better. Alright, so now we have reached the end of the video, and of course the ultimate question is which one to get. Of course, at the price point, I think the OnePlus 11 does definitely take the cake because it does give you almost a similar amount of specs as with the S23 Ultra, but at a much lower price point. So in case if you guys want to save on your money, but you still want top of the line specs in 2023, definitely go for the OnePlus 11. But of course, if you want to splash a little bit more to get everything one of the best, I think the S23 Ultra here definitely fits the bill. It does have amazing battery, it does have your amazing cameras, you have your stylus as well, a lot of features with this, so definitely this one here takes the cake. But let me know in the comments down below, is that difference of about $400, whether it's worth it to get this phone here compared to the OnePlus 11. Of course, these are just my thoughts and my opinions. Do share yours in the comment section down below, and of course if you did enjoy this video, do click the like and smash the subscribe down button down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.